Welcome to Nikki's Nightmares, where chilling tales come to life. In today's terrifying story, we step inside some of the most infamous haunted houses in America, real homes with real addresses, where documented tragedy, violent history, and unexplained paranormal activity have left something lingering behind. From the volatile energy of the Sallie House in Kansas, to the disembodied voices captured inside a quiet Maine rental, to the blood-stained legacy of the Lizzie Borden House. These true haunted house cases blur the line between history and horror. Shadow figures, intelligent EVPs, unexplained scratches, cold spots, and footsteps in empty rooms will leave you questioning whether these houses are simply old structures or something far more aware. If you love scary stories, paranormal encounters, true crime hauntings, and real-life haunted locations, you're in the right place. Make sure to like, subscribe, and join me as we delve into the deep, dark, and the mysterious. There's something about a haunted house that unsettles me in a way nothing else can. Maybe it's because a home is supposed to mean safety, warmth, shelter from whatever darkness waits outside the door. A place where you can lock the windows, turn off the lights, and finally breathe. But some houses don't let you breathe. I'm not talking about carnival attractions or staged screams behind plywood walls. I mean real houses, real addresses, places with mailboxes and family photos still hanging in the hallway, homes known for whispers in empty rooms, footsteps pacing the second floor when no one is upstairs, cold drafts that move against the direction of the wind. There's an energy inside some of these places that feels wrong the moment you step through the door. The floorboards creak beneath your weight, but it doesn't sound like settling wood. It sounds responsive, as if the house is adjusting to you, watching you. These walls have absorbed more than time. They've soaked up grief, violence, secrets that never made it outside. And sometimes, when you stand still long enough, you get that unmistakable feeling that you're not alone, that something inside the house knows you're there, and that whatever remains isn't happy you're still alive while they're not. The Sallie House. There are some houses in America that carry a weight to their name. The Lizzie Borden House, the Winchester Mystery House, the Amityville Horror House. But when seasoned investigators are asked which home feels the most volatile, the most aggressive, the answer I hear again and again is the Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas. And after standing in front of it myself, I understood why. If you didn't know better, you'd walk right past it. A modest 2-story white house with blue trim at 508 North 2nd Street. It looks like any other Midwestern family home. Quiet, unassuming, almost gentle. But the history rooted beneath its floorboards tells a much darker story. The house was built between 1867 and 1871 by Michael Finney. He died inside the home in 1872. After his death, his son, Dr. Charles Finney, one of the few doctors serving Atchison at the time, took over the residence. The family lived upstairs. The front room downstairs doubled as his medical office. In the early 1900s, there were no hospitals in Atchison. The town wouldn't see its first until 1914, despite having more than 15,000 residents. Emergency care happened in homes, on kitchen tables, in bedrooms. And one night, a desperate mother pounded on Dr. Finney's door. Her 6-year-old daughter, Sallie, was doubled over in agony from what appeared to be acute appendicitis. Her appendix was close to rupturing. Without immediate intervention, she would die. Dr. Finney administered anesthesia. But believing the child was moments from death, He began the surgery before it had fully taken effect. Sallie screamed, and then she went quiet. She died on that table. Whether the details have been shaped by legend over time or preserved by local memory, the story has remained consistent. A terrified child, overwhelming pain, and a final traumatic moment inside those walls. And if something of her remained behind, no one would know for decades, not until 1992. That's when Deborah and Tony Pickman, newly married and expecting their first child, moved into the home. They found it charming, historic, affordable. They turned one of the upstairs bedrooms into a nursery for their son, Taylor. For months, nothing seemed unusual. Then the small things began, light bulbs burning out, the oven timer switching on by itself, their cordless phone losing power and then mysteriously working again. Their dog, normally calm, growling at the nursery door. They blamed old wiring, until the stuffed animals moved. One evening after being out, they came home to find every toy from the nursery piled neatly in the center of the floor. They searched the house. No intruder. They reset everything, put their baby to bed and walked downstairs. The nursery light turned back on. When they returned, one teddy bear was on the floor. They repeated the process. The bear moved again. That was the first night they left. Tony's brother contacted a psychic in California named Barbara. Over the phone, she told them 3 things. There was a spirit in the house, she was a young girl, and her name was Sallie. At the same time, Tony's mother contacted a former resident of the house. The woman mentioned an occasional sour smell she could never identify, and that her children once blamed a girl named Sallie for leaving toys on the floor. 2 separate sources, the same name. Barbara eventually traveled to Atchison. She claimed Sallie was playful, harmless, just seeking attention. She suggested acknowledging her, including her. Deborah leaned into that idea. She spoke to Sallie. She bought her a doll, gift-wrapped it, and left it on a chair. Later, the doll was found unwrapped in the baby's crib, the packaging untouched. Deborah's attitude shifted. She became protective, maternal toward the unseen presence. Tony, however, began experiencing something very different. He heard whispers Deborah couldn't hear, scratching inside the walls. He felt something nibbling at his toes at night. Then the scratches began. One evening, while hosting friends, they watched as a deep scratch appeared across Tony's forehead, bleeding, etched by something invisible. The attacks escalated. He woke with blisters around his wrists, shaped like small fingerprints. He dreamed of being dragged from bed, of an older woman dressed in black hovering over him, threatening to kill him as the room shook violently. Barbara later claimed there was a second spirit, a domineering older woman, also residing in the home. But the violence focused on Tony. Candles lit themselves, an oil lamp ignited, a teddy bear caught fire. Their baby began waking in piercing shrieks, unlike normal crying. A toy emitted a harsh static sound so loud it hurt Deborah's ears. Still, Deborah struggled to believe the spirit meant harm. Then the television show Sightings arrived to document the activity. Cameras rolled. Within minutes, crew members witnessed scratches forming on Tony's body. 11 attacks were documented in a single night. At one point, MC appeared carved into his back, believed to reference Michael Croman Finney, the home's original builder. Even seasoned parapsychologists on site admitted they had never seen anything like it. A cleansing was attempted. It failed. Tony was attacked again, deeper scratches than ever before. The voices intensified, sleep deprivation set in. He began experiencing blackouts, overwhelming rage, paranoia. During one blackout, he killed a stray cat that had wandered into the home. He later said he heard voices urging him to harm Deborah next. Then came the push. Standing at the top of the staircase, Tony felt an unseen force shove him hard enough to break the railing. He barely avoided falling to his death. That was the breaking point. Within 2 weeks, the Pickmans moved out. Investigators have since theorized that Sallie may not be the only entity there. Reports describe an older woman's spirit, a male presence. Some believe something darker resides in the basement, something not human, a force that may have manipulated the environment or even attempted to manipulate Tony himself. Today, the Sallie House still stands in Atchison. It has become an attraction. Guests can book overnight stays, 2-person minimum, and must bring their own sleeping bags. Strict rules prohibit seances or cleansing attempts, because whatever resides there doesn't seem to appreciate being challenged. And when I stood outside that quiet white house, staring at those still windows, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside was watching. Not playful, not innocent, just waiting. So tell me, would you spend a night inside the Sallie House? The Ghosts of Carmel, Maine. There's a quiet stretch of land in Carmel, Maine, not far from a cemetery, where a modest rental home has become one of the most talked about haunted houses in America. They call it the Lamb House. And the man who lives there says the walls are not empty. The phenomenon known as Ghosts of Carmel, Maine, centers around Kent Burris, a resident who has lived in the home since 2014. What began as subtle disturbances slowly evolved into something far more persistent. What makes this case unsettling isn't just the activity itself, it's the consistency of it, the documentation, the recordings, the voices. Kent never intended to become a paranormal figure. In fact, he describes himself as a skeptic. He has said that in order for him to believe something is paranormal, it has to prove itself beyond doubt. But not long after moving into the house, strange events began unfolding, small at first. Footsteps downstairs while he was upstairs alone, doors closing, conversations drifting through empty rooms. He would hear what sounded like his family returning home, only to walk downstairs and find the house completely empty. No cars in the driveway, no one in the yard, just silence. The longer he lived there, the more frequent the disturbances became. Instead of ignoring them, Kent began investigating. He set up audio recorders, cameras, EMF meters, K2 devices. Eventually, he invited outside paranormal investigators into the home. According to him, their equipment reacted immediately. Spikes in electromagnetic readings, sudden interference, an atmosphere that felt charged. Kent has stated that the more he investigated, the stronger the activity became, as if something inside the home was responding to the attention. He claims to have encountered shadow figures, apparitions, disembodied voices captured through EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recordings that appear to answer questions in real time. Some of those voices, he says, are not hostile. Some whisper phrases like, "Pray to God." Others say they are stuck. Some mention Jesus by name. Kent has openly discussed his belief that not all spirits are the same, that some may be demonic, some angelic, and others what he calls humanoid spirits. Entities that claim to have once been human, entities that appear aware and capable of communication. One of the most unsettling aspects of the case is that Kent's granddaughter, Kaylee Coolidge, has also reported hearing the voices. She has described them as providing information, backstories, details that feel personal, as if something unseen is trying to be understood. During one investigation in an upstairs bedroom, Kent announced that someone named Alyssa had entered the room. Moments later, on the recording, a voice responded, "Hey, Alyssa. Clear enough to stop the air in your lungs." Kent reacted immediately, repeating what he had heard. The voice, faint but present, seemed to acknowledge the living in real time. These recordings have been featured across major streaming platforms, drawing a large audience. The Ghosts of Carmel, Maine channel has grown to tens of thousands of subscribers, yet Kent maintains he does not monetize his content. He has said he refuses to take money for it, believing that profit would undermine the credibility of what he is documenting. He insists there are no special effects, no staged theatrics, just what happens inside that house. Kent also believes intention matters, that spirits know why you're there, that they understand motive, and he claims he learned that lesson the hard way. The home sits near a cemetery, a detail that only deepens the unease. Whether that proximity has anything to do with the activity remains speculation. But for those who watch the footage, who listen closely to the EVPs, the sense of something present is difficult to dismiss outright. Carmel, Maine is a quiet town, wooded roads, still air, long winters. But inside the Lamb House, there are voices that refuse to stay buried. Are they echoes of the past, something darker, or something that simply wants to be heard? Kent believes the spirits are trying to tell their stories, and whether skeptic or believer, once you hear a voice answer back from an empty room, it becomes much harder to ignore the possibility that you are not alone. The Lizzie Borden House. On the morning of August 4th, 1892, inside a modest home in Fall River, Massachusetts, something brutal unfolded behind closed doors. Andrew Borden and his wife Abby were found hacked to death with an axe. The crime was savage, deliberate, intimate. And more than a century later, the house where it happened is still standing, preserved almost exactly as it was that day. Today, it is known as one of the most haunted houses in America. But before it became a destination for ghost hunters and true crime pilgrims, it was simply home to the Borden family, and to a mystery that still refuses to settle. That morning began quietly. Abby Borden moved about the house, tidying rooms and preparing for the visit of John Vinicum Morse, the brother of Andrew's first wife, Sarah. The household was uneasy. Several members had been suffering from suspected food poisoning. Tension simmered beneath the surface. Andrew returned from his morning walk and lay down on the sitting room sofa to rest. What he didn't know was that upstairs, in a guest bedroom, Abby was already dead, struck multiple times with an axe while making the bed. Moments later, Andrew would suffer a similar fate. He was attacked where he slept, receiving 11 blows to the head. The violence was staggering. The wounds were so severe that recognition was nearly impossible. It was Lizzie Borden, Andrew's youngest daughter, who claimed to have discovered her father's body. Her statements that day would place suspicion squarely on her shoulders. Inconsistencies, unusual behavior, the alleged burning of a dress days later. The public was convinced. And yet, Lizzie Borden was acquitted. The jury found her not guilty after a highly publicized trial in 1893. Despite the verdict, the court of public opinion had already passed its own sentence. A children's rhyme would echo her name for generations. Lizzie Borden took an axe. But what if the truth was never that simple? Bridget Sullivan, the Bordens' live-in housekeeper, was present that morning. She had been cleaning windows in the heat, despite feeling ill. She testified that Lizzie called out to her, claiming someone had killed her father. But Abby's body had been upstairs for some time before Andrew was attacked. The timeline was troubling. Was Bridget merely an overworked employee caught in horror? Or did resentment and illness cloud something darker? Then there was John Vinicum Morse, conveniently visiting the home the night before the murders, despite rarely staying there in the past. His alibi was detailed, almost too detailed. He was away from the house during the estimated time of the killings. But coincidence has a way of unsettling even the strongest alibi. And then there is another possibility, one that lingers not in testimony, but in atmosphere. Some believe the house itself carries something older. Years before Andrew and Abby's deaths, tragedy had already touched the extended Borden family. Whispers of past violence, grief, and mental instability seem to shadow the lineage. Whether fact or folklore, the idea of a curse has attached itself to the property, as if something dark had settled into the walls long before 1892. Today, visitors report footsteps on the staircase when no one is there. Disembodied whispers in empty rooms, shadow figures drifting past doorways. Guests staying overnight in the bedroom where Abby was murdered claim to feel pressure at the foot of the bed, or sudden drops in temperature that crawl across the skin. The house operates as both museum and inn. By day, artifacts and case details are displayed with careful preservation. By night, it becomes something else entirely. Still, heavy, watching. The Lizzie Borden case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved murders. No one was ever convicted, no confession ever surfaced, only speculation, and the echo of unanswered questions. Was it Lizzie? Was it someone else inside that house? Or does the truth lie buried somewhere between history and hauntings? If you ever find yourself in Fall River, you can walk those halls yourself, stand in the sitting room, climb the narrow staircase, sleep beneath the same roof where 11 blows fell in the quiet of a summer morning. Just remember, some houses remember what happened inside them, and some never let it go. The story ends here, but the terror does not. Join me again, like, comment, and subscribe if you dare.